From the moment I married into this family, they made it clear, a woman's worth was in the children she bore. I tried. I prayed. I cried into my pillow every night, but months turned into years and my womb remained empty. Their whispers turned into open insults. My husband's love grew distant. My in-laws' cruelty, unbearable. They shamed me at gatherings, called me barren to my face, and even hinted my husband should take another wife. Still, I held on to my faith. I believed that if Allah delayed something, it was for a reason. But the pain, oh, the pain was deep. And just when I thought I had reached my breaking point, Allah was about to show me that His plans are greater than any insult they could throw at me. Before we continue, my dear brothers and sisters, please hit the subscribe button, like this video, share it with others, and drop a comment telling me where you are watching from. Your support means more than you know. I still remember the first time someone made me feel less of a woman. It wasn't a stranger. It wasn't even someone who disliked me. It was my own aunt. I had been married for a little over a year. My husband and I were deeply in love, the kind of love that makes even the smallest things feel beautiful. We would laugh over burnt toast, share secret smiles in crowded rooms, and stay up late dreaming about our future children. But months passed, and the cradle we bought stayed empty. At first, I thought, it's okay, it will happen when Allah wills. We were patient. We made dua. Then one afternoon, at a family gathering, my aunt leaned in and whispered, "So, still nothing. Maybe you should check what's wrong with you." Her words hit like a stone in my chest. I forced a smile, but inside, my heart cracked a little. It wasn't just her. Neighbors began to ask. Some with fake concern, others with cruel curiosity. I'd hear whispers when I walked into a room. "Poor thing, married for so long, still no children. Her husband must be thinking of marrying again." I would cry silently at night, careful not to wake my husband. And yet, every morning, I put on a brave face. Because I believed Allah's plan is always better than ours. But I didn't know then, that my greatest test was yet to come. Had been 2 years since our wedding. By now, the whispers weren't whispers anymore, they were open conversations in front of me. At weddings, relatives would joke. "Don't eat too much, you might finally get pregnant. Maybe you should try those old remedies, your mother-in-law swears by them." Every word felt like a thorn in my heart. But the worst part was when those words started reaching my husband. One evening, he came home looking tired. I asked, "What's wrong?" He hesitated, then said quietly, "My cousin suggested, maybe I should think about another marriage. Just so I can have children." I froze. I had always known society could be cruel to women without children. But to hear it from the person I loved most, even if he was only repeating what someone else said, felt like my entire world shook. I tried to smile. "You know I'd never stop you if that's what you wanted," I whispered. He looked at me sharply. "Don't say that. You are my wife and nothing will change that." His words were like a shield against the world, but still, deep inside, I carried the fear that one day, the pressure might win. I began to avoid family gatherings. I would scroll past baby announcements on social media, because each one felt like a reminder of what I didn't have. And then, one day, after a particularly painful visit to my in-laws, I came home, locked myself in the bathroom, and whispered through my tears, "Ya Allah, if children are good for me, bless me with them. But if not, grant me a heart that can bear this pain." I didn't know that Allah had already written a plan for me. A plan so beautiful, it would silence every tongue that shamed me. Months passed. Life seemed normal on the outside, but inside, my heart carried a storm. I began noticing subtle changes in how people treated me. When gifts were given to all the married women in the family, mine would sometimes be forgotten. When conversations turned to motherhood, someone would quickly say, "Oh, never mind," as if I wasn't part of that sacred circle. It's strange, you can be in the middle of a crowd and still feel like you don't belong. One afternoon, my neighbor knocked on my door, holding her newborn. Her smile was bright, but her words sliced through me. You're still young. Don't give up. Maybe this year is your year. I nodded politely, hiding the lump in my throat. But at night, I lay awake, replaying those words. The pressure wasn't just from others, it was now coming from myself. I questioned my worth as a woman, as a wife, even as a believer. One evening, my husband found me sitting in the dark. He sat beside me, holding my hand in silence. Then he said something I'll never forget. You are more than your ability to have children. Don't let anyone make you forget that. His words were like a bomb. But still, I couldn't silence the ache. And then, something unexpected happened. A friend invited me to volunteer at an orphanage. I hesitated. I wasn't sure my heart could handle being around children. But that visit would plant a seed in my life that I didn't yet understand. The day I stepped into the orphanage, I wasn't prepared for what I would feel. The building was small, the paint faded, but the air it was filled with laughter. Children ran across the courtyard, some barefoot, some clutching worn-out toys as if they were treasures. A little boy, no more than 4, ran up to me. His hair was messy, his clothes mismatched, but his smile subtle, it lit up the whole place. Without hesitation, he wrapped his tiny arms around my legs and whispered, "Are you my mama?" My heart stopped. I knelt down, trying to hold back my tears, and asked, "Why do you ask that, little one?" He shrugged, his eyes innocent yet heavy with longing. "I pray every night for Allah to send me a mama." I felt a lump in my throat so big, I could barely speak. As I walked around, I met more children, each with their own story of loss, abandonment, or tragedy. And yet, despite having so little, they shared everything, their biscuits, their toys, their smiles. I left that day with something I didn't expect, a strange mixture of heartbreak and hope. That night, I told my husband about the visit. He listened quietly, then said, "Maybe Allah brought you there for a reason." I didn't know it yet. But that reason was about to unfold in ways I could never imagine. After that first visit, I couldn't stay away. Every few days I found myself back at the orphanage, carrying bags of fruit, clothes, and sometimes just myself. The little boy who had asked if I was his mama. His name was Yusuf. From the moment we met, something inside me shifted. He would hold my hand the entire time I was there, as if afraid I'd disappear. One afternoon, I brought him a small toy car. It wasn't much, just a second-hand one I'd found at the market. But when I gave it to him, his eyes widened like I'd handed him the keys to a kingdom. "Mama, this is mine." "Forever?" The word mama made my heart ache and melt all at once. We began to share little traditions. He would save me the biggest smile when I arrived, and I would braid his hair after lunch, even though he'd undo it 5 minutes later just to laugh. The caretakers told me his story. He had been found at the doorstep of a mosque as a newborn. No one ever came to claim him. One evening, as I was about to leave, Yusuf grabbed my scarf and said, "Don't go. Please, don't go. I promised I'd be back." But what I didn't know was, this little boy would soon become the center of the greater plan Allah had written for me long before I even knew his name. Alright, here's part 6 of They Shamed Me for Not Having Children. But Allah had a greater plan. The days without seeing Yusuf began to feel empty. It wasn't just about visiting the orphanage anymore, it was about him. I would be cooking and suddenly remember the way his small fingers curled around mine. I'd walk past the toy section in the market and hear his laughter echo in my mind. It was as if Allah had gently placed him in my heart and whispered, "Look here. This is where your story begins again." One Friday, after Jumu'ah, my husband and I sat in the living room. The sermon had been about kindness to orphans and how the Prophet said, "I and the one who cares for an orphan will be together in paradise like this," and he held his 2 fingers together. I took a deep breath. "Can we talk about something?" I asked him. He put down his tea and looked at me, curious. "It's about adopting," I said softly. His eyebrows rose, not in disapproval but in surprise. You mean, taking one of the children from the orphanage home? Yes, I said, or at least fostering. Giving them a family. Giving Yusuf a family. There was silence. Not the cold, dismissive kind, but the kind where a person is weighing something deeply. Finally, he said, you know our families won't understand. They'll say it's not the same as having our own. I nodded, I know, but maybe it is the same in Allah's eyes. Maybe even better. That night, I couldn't sleep. Because for the first time in years, I felt hope blooming again, not for a child from my womb, but for a child Allah had already chosen for my heart. 2 days later, I told my mother about Yusuf. We were sitting in her small garden, where the scent of hibiscus flowers floated in the air. I spoke with excitement how gentle he was, how he smiled even without a reason, how he clung to my hand like he had been waiting for it his whole life. She listened quietly, until I mentioned fostering him. Her face changed. My daughter. She said slowly, this is not the solution. If you bring in a stranger's child, people will talk. They will say your husband married you but got someone else's blood in his home. They will ask, why can't she give him his own? Her words were like cold water poured on a warm fire. I tried to explain how the Prophet peace be upon him, himself cared for orphans, how it was a path to Jannah, but she shook her head. You are already carrying the burden of their pity. Don't give them another reason to speak. That night, my heart ached. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I was foolish to think this would be easy. The next day, I went to the orphanage anyway. Yusuf saw me from the far end of the courtyard. He ran. His little feet kicked up dust until he crashed into my arms. And then, without a word, he pulled out a crumpled paper from his pocket, a drawing of a stick woman holding hands with a small boy. He pointed at the woman and said, Mama. I bit my lip, tears stinging my eyes. In that moment, the noise of the world, the gossip, the fear, the whispers became so small, because Allah had just shown me the only thing that mattered. That evening, I finally told Hamza about Yusuf. We were sitting after dinner, the room lit only by the soft glow of a single lamp. My heart was pounding as I spoke how I met him, how he held my hand, how he called me Mama. Hamza leaned back, his face unreadable. When I finished, there was a long silence. I braced myself for the same fears my mother had voiced. Instead, he smiled. Not just any smile, the kind he gave me on our wedding day, full of warmth and certainty. Do you remember, he said softly, the night we cried together after the doctor's news? You told me you feared never hearing someone call you Mama in this life. I promised you Allah is greater than any medical report. Maybe, this is how he answers that promise. My breath caught in my throat. You mean? He nodded. We will bring him home. It felt like the air in the room shifted. The heaviness I had been carrying for years lifted, replaced by a quiet joy that made my chest ache. But Hamza leaned closer and whispered, You must prepare, my love. The world will not clap for this decision. Some will insult you. Some will question your faith. And some will try to hurt this child with their words. I swallowed hard. I'm ready. But I didn't know, none of us knew, that the first wound wouldn't come from the outside. It would come from someone inside the family. It happened sooner than I expected. Hamza and I had invited his family over for lunch to share the news. The dining table was full, steaming rice, tender lamb, salad glistening with olive oil. I had cooked all morning, my heart fluttering with excitement and nervousness. When everyone had settled, Hamza cleared his throat. Alhamdulillah, he began, we want to share something dear to us. We've decided to bring a child into our home, a little boy from the orphanage. For a heartbeat, there was silence. Then, a smile from his youngest sister. A nod from his uncle. But not everyone was smiling. From the far end of the table, Hamza's aunt, the one known for speaking her mind without mercy, put down her spoon with a loud clink. An orphan, she said, her voice dripping with disbelief. You mean, someone else's blood? Someone whose family we don't even know. I forced a polite smile. He's a beautiful child, Auntie Anne. She cut me off with a sharp laugh. Beautiful? You think raising a stranger's child will give you honor? Let me tell you something, dear. Blood is blood. You don't know where he comes from, what his parents were. Bad roots make bad fruit. The words hit me like stones. I felt my cheeks burn, my throat tighten. Across the table, Hamza's eyes darkened. With respect, Aunt, he said firmly, the messenger of Allah, peace be upon him, himself was an orphan. If we reject an orphan because of his blood, what will we say to Allah? The table fell silent. But the damage was done. Her words had carved a wound in my heart, not because I believed them, but because they were a glimpse of the battles yet to come. That night, as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, I whispered to myself, if this is the price of hearing a child call me Mama, then so be it. What I didn't know was that the real test wasn't her words. It was something much more dangerous, something that would put Yusuf's future in jeopardy before he even stepped into our home. The days that followed were heavy, not because my body was tired, but because my heart carried a weight that no one could see. Every corner of the house felt different now, even the kitchen, where I used to happily prepare meals for my husband, now felt like a place of silence. One evening, as I set his dinner on the table, I noticed he was unusually quiet. He didn't look at me much, and when he did, his eyes seemed distracted. Is something wrong? I finally asked, my voice soft, almost afraid of the answer. He hesitated before speaking. No, nothing. Just tired, he said quickly. But I knew. I knew the tone. I knew the way his words avoided the truth. Later that night, when I went to check on him, I found him scrolling through his phone, smiling at a message. It wasn't my name on the screen. My heart thumped so loud I thought he could hear it. I quietly walked away, not wanting to accuse, not wanting to create a storm without certainty, but inside, the seeds of suspicion began to grow. The next morning, I woke up early for Far, and I made a long dua. The next morning, I woke up early for Far, and I made a long dua. Ya Allah, if there is a test ahead of me, give me the strength to face it. If there is truth hidden from me, reveal it, and if there is harm coming my way, protect me from it. That day, my husband left for work earlier than usual. And just as I was tidying the living room, I heard a knock on the door. When I opened it, I froze. Standing there was a woman I had never seen before, but she looked at me as if she had known me for years. Her words were sharp without greeting, you don't know me, but I know your husband very well. By the time my in-laws left that afternoon, the words they had spoken still rang in my ears like poison. She's cursed, Barren, wasting our son's life. I sat on the prayer mat, my knees pulled to my chest, the tears flowing silently. Yusuf came into the room, his face tense, his lips pressed into a thin line. He didn't even sit beside me. Instead, he walked to the wardrobe, pulled out his work clothes, and said in a low voice, maybe they're right, maybe you should get checked again. The way he said it wasn't out of concern. It was as if he was laying the blame entirely at my feet, as though my body was deliberately failing to give him what he wanted. Yusuf, I whispered, my voice trembling, I've done every test. We prayed together for years. This is Qadr Allah. Do you think I chose this? He didn't answer. Instead, he picked up his phone, scrolling while I sat there breaking. That was the night I realized my marriage wasn't just under pressure, it was cracking. Over the next weeks, the comments from relatives got bolder. A cousin sent me pictures of her newborn with the message, don't worry, your turn will come, inshallah. But the tone felt mocking, not kind. At the masjid, even some sisters would pat my shoulder and say, keep making dua, sister. Allah is merciful. I smiled at them, but inside, the weight of my empty arms ached deeper than anyone could imagine. One night, unable to sleep, I cried into my pillow, whispering to Allah, Ya Rab, if motherhood is not written for me now, give me the strength to bear it without breaking. but please, don't let people crush me with their tongues. That was the night something shifted inside me. I didn't know it yet, but Allah's greater plan was already in motion.